I just got my yarn in the mail, so it's time to cast on a new project. Hobbii very kindly sent me over some yarn to do their No Shades of Grey challenge over on TikTok. And if you follow me on TikTok, you've probably already seen me talk about this, but I wanted to do a longer vlog here on YouTube to document the process. I am knitting the Anemone sweater, and this sweater has been on my list to knit for so long. So I also wanted to make a longer vlog documenting the process. This will be my second colorwork project. So the yarn just arrived and I want to show you all what I have picked out. This pattern was from Knitting for Olive, so one of the first challenges was just picking out the yarn. I really wanted to try the Unicorn Solid because I saw another creator use it and it looked really nice. This is just the white, but these are some of the colors. I thought the colors look so nice. Like they're so perfectly saturated, but they're still like not super bright. They're a bit more refined. They're very wearable. This is the other color. I think this is my favorite color. I think they're really nice. So I'm very excited to try this out for the first time. And I'm also going to be holding this with a mohair. So this is the Friends Kid Silk, and I've used this before and I do like it. So excited to use this again and try out a new yarn as well. Even though these aren't the same line of yarn, I still managed to find some really similar shade matches between them. So let me show you all the colors. For the base, I have the Unicorn Solid in cream and then the Kid Silk in off-white. For the leaves, I have moss green and hunter green. And then for the flowers, I have a few different colors. This is lilac and lilac, caramel and ochre, mustard and cognac. I think this is my favorite color. This is seafoam and Turkish blue. I also wanted to do a light blue color, but the unicorn merino didn't get sent, so I only have the mohair for this. I was thinking I could maybe hold these together just to make like another blue. I'm not really sure yet. I guess I will kind of decide later. For now, I'm just going to make a gauge swatch and then I need to figure out what order I'm going to put the colors in. But I'm very excited. I like the colors a lot. I think they all go together very well and I think they'll be really beautiful. And I'm really excited to get started. I've wanted to make this sweater for so long. So I felt like this was just like the perfect timing when I got that email from Hobbii and I was like, yes, I do want to make a really colorful sweater. This sweater is knit bottom up, so I'm starting with the bottom ribbing. I've never knit a bottom up sweater. I've only done top down. So this construction was not something I was really looking forward to. I do really like the top down construction, but it's not the end of the world. I'm just going to do it. And here I'm doing lazy purling. It's a technique that I saw on Instagram, and I'm putting the yarn under the needle instead of over top of it when I'm purling, which creates those twisted pearls, which I then purl through the back loop to untwist. I recently switched to continental knitting and I'm still really struggling with the continental purling, so this is definitely making it easier. I've also heard that this is good for ribbing because it helps you have more even tension, so that's why I'm trying out this new technique. And this is the ribbing all done. There's quite a lot of ribbing at the bottom, so even though I wasn't super excited for the bottom up construction, I guess it is nice that I get all of this ribbing out of the way at the beginning while I still have motivation, and then I get to do the fun color work for the rest of the sweater. I'm not sure if the lazy purling really helped so much with the tension, but it was definitely easier to do than a regular continental purl. And this is the first row of colorwork flowers done. I'm really happy with how it's looking so far. I'm going to a little craft night tonight, so I'm just gonna pack my yarn and stuff in this basket. This is just like a monthly craft night that my friend invited me to with a few of her girlfriends. Some of the girls are working on the same projects and some girls are just bringing their own crafts to work on, so I'm going to bring this sweater to continue working on. I feel like the fiber arts and like visual arts in general can be kind of like an isolating hobby because it's a type of hobby that you can just do by yourself. And so, like, I just kind of stay at home and do my knitting by myself. So it's been really nice to be able to find communities of girls who have the same like hobbies and interests as me and be able to get together and just like do stuff together. When I moved to Toronto, I didn't know a single person, and I made a really big effort to meet people and make friends when I first moved here. And so far I've had like a really great experience with that. I feel like I've just like been myself and people have been really receptive, and I've been able to meet a lot of really nice girls who are into artsy stuff and crafts and stuff like that. I'm also going to bring my paintbrushes and my paint kit for some of the girls because some of the girls are going to be painting with their crafts tonight, so they can use that. I feel like a really big thing for me in making friends has just been like doing the things that I want to do and finding like-minded people through that. So like I want to go to the park and do crafts, and I want to go to dinner parties and have craft nights. So I started just like doing those things. I invited girls over to do craft nights. I hosted dinner parties, and then like through that, I started getting invited to these types of events and started meeting more people who have similar interests and similar hobbies to me. And so far I've had just like a really positive experience with that and with making friends here in Toronto. And yeah, it definitely makes living in a big city feel a little bit smaller. Okay, I think that's all I need. I'm just gonna bring like obviously the yarn that's currently attached to the sweater, and then I'm going to bring the mustard colored yarn to start the next row of flowers. The craft night is only like a few hours long, so I don't anticipate getting more than like one row of flowers done during it. Okay, I'm gonna bundle up because it's really insanely cold outside, and see you guys after. I was too awkward to film a lot during the craft night, but this is what I got done. I got one more row of flowers done. Now I'm just winding my yarn to get it ready to use for the next color of flower, and I'm so excited to knit with this lavender purple color. It's so pretty. And this ball winder has been a really great purchase. It really saves me a lot of time. I still haven't gotten a Swift, but I'm just making do and using the back of a chair. It's a little bit finicky, and at the end it definitely gets tangled. I did see someone say to use two chairs back to back, and that's supposed to make it easier. So I definitely have to try that out next time. But working through it, and eventually it's a nice cake of yarn, and I'm ready to knit the next row of flowers. And honestly, I did frog this first section of flowers at least 3 or 4 times. I was having the hardest time with my floats because the floats are kind of longer than I've ever, had to do before. At first I tried to just not catch the floats, and then it was hard for me to maintain an even tension. So then I tried catching floats, and I just found no matter what I did, you could always kind of see the contrast color being carried behind. I think especially because the green is quite dark compared to the cream color, you could like especially really see that. And it really is just like the stems that are the only area that the float is like really long and I really need to catch it. So that wasn't working very well for me. And then I discovered the ladder back jacquard technique, and that really was like a game changer. So for the ladder back jacquard, I only used it to manage the floats for the stems. I made a backward loop cast on with the green yarn in the middle of the float. So when I get to that, I bring the white yarn to the front and I knit the green stitch. Then I keep following the colorwork chart. So those knits are caught in the back and ladder all the way up the stem. Then when I get to the row where the leaves are only 1 stitch apart, I knit the ladder back jacquard stitch together with the leaf, and the green yarn blends into the leaf so it's super invisible. Hopefully this explanation makes sense if you're working on this sweater and you're familiar with the color work chart. And this is how the back looks. You can see the ladder for each stem. Another new thing with my knitting is that I now knit continental. And I originally learned how to knit continental to do color work so that I could hold one color in my right hand and one color in my left hand. And from that, I've kind of started to get more comfortable with continental and really pick that up as my main style of knitting. So I learned how to knit English when I was really young, and that has been like the English throwing has been the only way that I have knit for a very long time. But I'm really enjoying the continental. I feel like because there's a little bit less movement with my hands, I don't get as fatigued as I do with English. I guess it is a little bit faster. I have seen like a lot of discourse online about like this English versus continental knitting style, and I think it's a little bit silly, but it did kind of impact me a little bit as well. There was a point where I thought that like if I couldn't knit continental, I wasn't really a good knitter, or maybe people wouldn't want to watch my videos where I'm knitting because I do English throwing, or that like continental was for some reason more professional. I know sometimes people talk about like knitting continental is better because it's faster. And personally, knitting fast is not really my number one goal. Knitting is a slow hobby for me at least, and I enjoy the process of it. So I didn't learn continental knitting just to like be faster. I think that if you're trying to be really fast, I'm not even sure if continental is the fastest knitting style out there, to be honest. And if someone's goal is to just be a fast knitter because they really enjoy having finished products, or because they're like designing patterns and they're trying to like crank out more sweaters and stuff, I think that's totally fine. But just personally for me, being fast is not the number one goal in my knitting. Really, I think the number one goal is just to be comfortable when I knit. I think sometimes with the English style, I get fatigued, or my hands get fatigued when I knit for long periods of time. And I feel like I get less fatigued with continental, but still sometimes it's nice to be able to switch to English if I am getting fatigued doing continental. So like I'll switch between English and continental knitting just to kind of give my hands a bit of variety in the motions that they're doing, so it's not so repetitive with the exact same action. So yeah, I think that's more what my goal is with knitting. The last sweater that I knit, I haven't finished it, but I almost finished it. And I did pretty much the entire sweater in 2 weeks. And I think it was just like honestly too much for my hands. My thumbs started hurting really badly, and I had to take a week-long break from knitting just because it was not good. My hands were really hurting, and it's something that I'm a bit worried about. Just if I get carpal tunnel, like I could be unable to knit for like an entire year. And that's kind of scary to me. So I'm more focused on just keeping my hands healthy and, listening to my body. If anything starts to feel painful, I stop. And I also make sure that I take breaks. So like if I'm knitting for half an hour, then I like take a break and don't just like knit for like hours straight anymore. Because I used to do that, but I know better now. So this pattern specifically says that if you've never steeked before, this is not a good project to do your first steek, but hear me out. I think I'm gonna steek it anyways. One of my mutuals on TikTok also knit this sweater, and she said that she really regretted not steeking it, and that even though I've never steeked anything before, she still recommends that I steek this sweater. And then I read through like every single Ravelry post for this sweater, and everyone said that they regretted not steeking it.
So that is really interesting. I feel like I don't hate purling my color work, but this is also a much more complex pattern than I've previously done with color work. So I could see why that is different. So I think that I'm just going to watch a few videos on steeking and see how I feel, but I think that I'm going to be able to steek this.
So I'm ready to set up for my steeking stitches, and the first thing I have to do is cast off a few stitches where I'm going to eventually cut to create the armholes. So using both yarns, I'm casting off some stitches here for the underarm, and then on the next round, I am casting stitches back on.
So this is the progress so far. I've started the steek stitches here for the arms.
This is what the inside of the sweater is looking like. I like to weave in my ends every couple of rows of flowers rather than waiting until the end to weave it all in, because I feel like that can be just like kind of daunting at the end of the project. Also, at the end of a project, weaving in ends just kind of feels like a chore, but weaving them in mid-project, it kind of feels like a nice break to kind of just switch things up. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I made a little mistake here where I stopped working the stitches for the leaves too soon before the steek stitches, but not a problem at all. I'm just going to grab a tapestry needle and some yarn, and I'm going to duplicate stitch to create that pattern of the leaves. I stayed up way too late knitting last night, but I am almost done the body of the sweater. I know it looks kind of crazy with the steeking stitches, but all I have left to do is bind off the steek stitches and then transfer my shoulder stitches onto some scrap yarn. So here, this is the front of the neckline steek. On the other side, this is the back of the neckline. And then on the sides, these are going to be the armholes. So that's the steek for the armhole. So I'm just going to finish my last round and bind things off. And then I think I'm going to try it on. Not because I think that it will look good, but because I think it will be kind of funny. So that's the steeking stitches bound off for the front of the neck. I remembered I saw someone do this thing where they put in a lifeline by threading a piece of scrap yarn through this little hole in their interchangeable needle. This is the hole that you would use to tighten the needle tips. And I was just thinking that might be helpful when transferring my live stitches onto the scrap yarn. So I think I'm going to, yeah, try that for transferring my stitches. This is just like how I keep all of my little scrap yarns. I put them in these Ferrero Rocher containers because I think they're nice, they're clear, and they're stackable, and they help keep it organized. That is my scrap yarn through the little hole in my needle. I think I need 4 shorter pieces of scrap yarn because they want one scrap yarn for like front and back of each shoulder. So let's see how this goes. Okay, so I've worked from one set of steeking stitches to the other, and then I'm just going to pull this yarn through, and with it my scrap yarn. Take it out of my needle. And then at the end, I can just pull my full needle out and the scrap yarn will be there to hold my life stitches. That worked really well. I'm just going to tie this into like a little bow so it doesn't fall off. It's nice that I can transfer my stitches at the same time that I'm working them. It just saves a little bit of time, and I think it's a nice little hack. Okay, it's done. So all I have to do, I guess, is pull out my needle here. Okay, needle is out and all of my shoulder stitches are held on with some scrap yarn. Technically, this is the front. Let's try it on. Okay, so it's a look. This is where the sleeves are going to be. I'm going to cut down there. I think it will fit a lot better over my shoulders once this neck steek is cut. The try-on is definitely not as cute as when I'm doing the top-down sweaters and stuff, but this is all I can give you. So, yeah. I'm gonna watch a few more tutorials and read a bit more about steeking before I actually cut this. Okay, little bit of a problem. I posted about my plans to steek on TikTok and someone commented, "Hey girl, aren't you using a superwash wool?" And I was like, "Oh my god, I am using a superwash wool." And for some reason, I totally forgot that. I've never used superwash wool before, so I think like in my head, I was just like, yeah, this yarn is 75% merino and then like 25% nylon. And I feel like the merino is like enough wool content to be able to steek. But for some reason, my brain just totally forgot that it was a superwash merino. So if you don't know, when you steek, really you do want a non-superwash wool because to steek, you kind of need the yarn to felt together a little bit. And that's kind of how you get the longevity of the steek after you cut it so it doesn't continue to unravel. So yeah, that's not great news, but I'm not too worried. The plan is that I'm going to double or like triple reinforce. I also do have the mohair that I'm holding with it. I think it's like a little bit of wool content in it as well. I think it's like mohair, wool, and silk. And also I think a polyamide or like a nylon. So I think that is going to kind of work in my favor to help felt up a little bit because there is a little bit of that like natural wool content or like mohair natural content. Um, and then the plan is to like double or triple reinforce it. So I'm going to crochet reinforce and then I'm going to back stitch and just like hand stitch to reinforce over top. And then I'm also going to felt it with a felting needle. I know like the superwash is not going to felt, but at least the mohair will felt and hopefully that will help out a bit. So I crocheted, then I hand stitched, then I needle felted to reinforce. So I did 3 different methods. And I know a lot of people recommend machine sewing, but I don't have a sewing machine, so I'm doing every other possible thing I can do. I also did my reinforcements with a 100% merino wool yarn, so I'm hoping that works in my favor. And I'm really glad that instead of panicking and frogging, I kind of took a step back and found a workaround. I feel like knitting isn't about perfection, it's about trying new things, making mistakes, learning as you go, and having fun. And I'm trying a new technique for the first time, so I made a mistake, and it's really not that serious. Okay, now we are ready to make the cut. I'm taking a pair of small scissors and very slowly and carefully cutting along the steek line, being very careful that I don't cut any of the reinforcements I made. And I'm so nervous. I'm literally sweating while I'm doing this. Now that it's cut, I can fold these down and that creates the armhole. The last thing I'm actually going to do is blanket stitch the edges. So that's kind of a fourth way to reinforce it. And I think this made a really big difference. It really locked in those cut ends and it made it feel very secure. And I'm Kitchener stitching the tops of the shoulders together. This is a really interesting process for this construction. I'm definitely not used to it because this isn't something you do for top-down sweaters typically, but I love the Kitchener stitch and the Italian bind off. I find it so meditative. Then I can work on the sleeves and the collar. The collar is folded over and sewn down, which you'll see later. And I love this detail in designs. I think it makes it look so clean and polished. I also love working the sleeves because they're so small and they knit up so fast. I rarely get the feeling of being on Sleeve Island, but having the motivation of knitting the next color of flower is also super motivating. I also didn't use ladderback jacquard for the sleeves. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because at this point I had enough practice that my tension remained really even, or maybe because it was a smaller piece, I didn't have the same issue with it. Here's a little try on. It's still super awkward because I haven't steeked my second shoulder, but I wanted to see how the sleeve was fitting. I already added an extra repeat of the flowers. I have long arms, so I usually need to add an extra 2 inches of length for the arms. It's still looking super short, but I know it usually does for me, and when I block it, I can stretch it a bit and add some extra length. Okay, we're back. The sweater's looking good. The sleeve is all done. And my plan for today is to steek this second armhole here and then start on my second sleeve. I think it's looking really good so far. I'm happy with it. A little bit worried about the sleeve length, but I feel like it's gonna block out okay. And then I didn't bind off on this sleeve, so I'll block it and see if it's long enough. Here's the pre-blocking try-on. I'm really happy with the fit. Obviously it's short, the sleeves are very short, and the body is a bit short too. As always, I'm hoping that's going to be fixed by blocking and pinning it. And I haven't done the bind off on the arm cuffs yet, so I can check the length after blocking and make them longer if needed. But I'm really happy with the fit otherwise. I think the shoulders fit really well. The width around the body and the chest is great. I do love doing a try on before I block because it's so interesting to see how it changes the garment. Okay, here's my anemone sweater being blocked, and I'm just going to wait for it to dry now. This sweater is done. This is how it looks. I'm going to try it on, but let's first look at the inside because I love looking at the inside of my color work. This is what the inside looks like. And this is how the sleeve looks as well. Okay, and here is the finished sweater on. The sleeves definitely got a lot longer when blocking, which is great. I did add extra length, so I added one extra flower section, and then I also made the ribbing part longer, which I think is fine. Like, the ribbing on the body is quite long, and in the pattern this ribbing is like probably half the length that I did. So I doubled the length of the ribbing there. I'm so happy with how it looks. I think it's so cute. And spring is just starting here in Toronto, so this is like the perfect time to wear this. Here's the back as well. After blocking, it definitely looks a lot nicer. Like the stitches are more even, the mohair kind of like fluffed up and filled in all of the stitches here. So I think the color work looks really nice. I'm really happy with how that turned out. I took maybe like a 2 week break from working on this, but not including those 2 weeks. This entire sweater took about a full month to knit. It was the only large project I was working on during that time. So that's how I kind of got it done in a shorter amount of time. But it was definitely a labor of love. All of the color work all over, that was definitely a bit more laborious. I'm so happy with how it turned out. The yarn is also very soft, and I can't wait to wear this in the spring. And yeah, I'm really happy with the fit as well. Okay, I think I'm going to end the project vlog here. Thanks so much for watching, and see you in the next one.